Okay, now we're at the Waukegan Public Library where they're going to be unveiling the statue for the Ray Bradbury. So let's talk to a few people. Okay, here we are in Waukegan, Illinois at the unveiling of the great statue of Ray Bradbury. And I am with, I guess, speaker, your name?
Jonathan Eller, Dr. Eller from Indianapolis, Indiana, and the Center for Ray Bradbury Studies.
You knew Ray Bradbury, and how did that come?
Well, I met him when my wife and I hosted him for an academic conference at the Air Force Academy, where I was a professor at the time in the 1980s, and our relationship grew from that. Working relationship on various editions of his works and eventually writing biographies about him. A wonderfully inspiring man. It was an honor to know him.
For those who don't know him, because you gave a brief, who was Ray Bradbury?
Well, Ray Bradbury became, over time, one of the best-known writers of the second half of the 20th century. He had come through the Depression era, graduating from high school in the late 1930s, moving from Waukegan during the Depression with his family out to Los Angeles, where without ever going to college, he became one of our master storytellers. He learned that his great gift was to write very emotionally about the things that make us human, the things that children love and fear or aspire to or dread, and how that translates into our adult lives. And he wrote timeless stories, ghost stories, some fantasy stories, science fiction, even mysteries. He was just a natural-born storyteller.
What was one of your favorite works that he did, and why?
Oh, I think one of my favorite works is a story he wrote in the early 50s called The Golden Apples of the Sun, where a crew in a spacecraft that's cooled to almost absolute zero goes to the sun to scoop some fusion out of the sun, the golden apples of the sun, and take it back to Earth to give us energy. It's totally unscientific, it's totally impossible, and yet probably every astronaut and space scientist and planetary geologist and astronaut knows that story because it's a story of our dreams to go to outer space. And it doesn't matter if the math works or not. He was our dreamer of going to the stars.
Now, he wrote every day, is that my understanding?
He aspired to write every day. And every day when he wasn't traveling or in lecture, he was probably writing. He carried his portable typewriters with him on the train, and eventually, as an older man, he decided overcame his fear of flying and flew. So he tried to type stories and parts of his novels almost every day that he could.
And us being in Waukegan, he wrote, I believe, as Greentown. How did that come?
Well, Greentown was the magical name he gave to Waukegan in Dandelion Wine, which is a series of stories that he wove together to tell the tale of young boys from the day that school ends in the summer of 1928 till the day they have to go back to school again, and all the wonders and joys they discover, and also all the complications of life that 12-year-old boys begin to learn about the long process of growing up.
So why do you think his stories lasted this long and the statue erected? What's your feeling?
Well, part of it is that the space age, and he wasn't very scientific at all in his training or in his education, but the space age, the dreams that he had about taking mankind to the stars, so we'd have sort of immortality, just to go to the stars became the dreams of probably every astronaut, every space scientist read his stuff at some time in their careers. And as we go back into space again, eventually into planetary exploration, his name comes up every time there's another probe going out to the planets. And that's part of why he's still with us and will live on. Another part is because he wrote about freedom of the imagination. Fahrenheit 451 is really just talking about why we have to protect freedom of the imagination and the classic books and literatures that have taught us things, the classic histories. You preserve them for the future. And for those reasons, he's a writer of the 21st century.
Now, you teach his works as well in universities?
We do. My responsibility is to run a research center dedicated to Ray Bradbury with all his papers and many of his awards, mementos, and books. But we also, he shows up in the curriculum a lot. Fahrenheit 451 is often in the curriculum of high schools and colleges and universities to remind us that with all the wonders in our technological age, let's not forget to keep reading as well, to keep learning about the past, how we got to the present, how we'll get to the future. Fahrenheit gets taught a lot. The Martian Chronicles gets taught a lot because it's about going to Mars, but it's really about Earth. The Martian Chronicles teaches us to think about how we will treat other planets when we go there. Will we exploit them, or will we cherish them maybe a little better than we've cherished our own planet?
I know there's a lot more, and we'll definitely check out your biographies on him, especially at the libraries as well. And Dr. Eller, thank you so much for coming here and a great participation in the event. Thanks so much for talking with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay, here we are at the Waukegan Public Library event for right before the unveiling of the Ray Bradbury statue, and I'm with your name?
Richard Lee. I'm a past director of the Waukegan Public Library for 15 years and co-chair of the Ray Bradbury Statue Committee.
Well, let's hear about it. How did this all get started?
Well, it started about 5 years ago, and I got a call from Hank Bogdala, who's a really cool guy that's no longer with us. And he said, I'm going to take you to lunch. And he said, we've got this Benny statue down the street here. We got to honor Ray as well. And I said, I couldn't agree with you more. And he said, we're going to put a committee together and you're going to chair it. And I said, wonderful. But I didn't realize it was going to be a 5-year endeavor. We had to raise the money. The entire project is about $125,000. And today is we finally get to see the fruits of our labors. And about 8:15 we'll be unveiling Fantastical Traveler.
And maybe for those who don't know, Ray Bradbury was born here.
That's right. Ray was born here, not too far from here, on St. James Street, and lived here till about he was almost 14 years old. Then moved to Tucson, I guess, and ended up in Los Angeles. But he never forgot his roots here in Waukegan.
And I think what's fitting is that he just loved the libraries, and he would just, especially in Waukegan as well.
Right. The old Carnegie is still here, a few blocks away, and that was Ray's library. And at one time, we considered putting the statue over there as well, but it really needs some tender loving care, the old Carnegie. It's a beautiful building, but then we realized that Ray just loved libraries in general, and this has been here since 1965, and this is where it should be, because it's still active.
And the Waukegan Library always had some programs evolving with Ray Bradbury as well.
Right, and like we had our annual Ray Bradbury Storytelling Festival, 12 years running. Ray gave us permission to use his name for that as long as we did it near Halloween, his favorite holiday.
So it's just going to be an impressive statue. You've obviously seen it before.
It really is. I mean, when Zachary Oxman came to the interview, he had it in like a 3D goggle kind of thing, so he kind of got to see it in 3D, but it's nothing like seeing it when we pull the blanket off it here in a little bit.
This is going to be a great attraction for the city of Waukegan. People driving by sees the statue, and it's just going to kick in.
Absolutely. It's going to be a real destination, photo op, you name it, a selfie place. And hopefully the committee and I hope that kids walking by here every day to the library will be inspired and maybe start writing on their own, too.
Their next one.
Bradbury.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right, exactly. For those who want to see the statue or come to the Waukegan Library, the address here?
128 North County Street in Waukegan, right next to the courthouse.
Well, this is just a great event, and again, thank you so much for your participation in this, the reason the statue and the event. And thank you so much for talking with us today.
Well, thank you.
for being here this evening. I always find it a lot of fun when we can be loud in the library and we can do things differently on the street than park and drive. This is always very exciting to me. This is what we affectionately call Ray Bradbury's library. We are a few blocks from the Carnegie Library, where he really did spend his childhood and reading in the library and just soaking up knowledge all the time. What we do have is that this particular library, I'm told, stands on the ground where his elementary school once stood. So we do have quite the deep connection to Ray Bradbury here. Ray's love of libraries was very well known. He's really famous for insisting that he was educated in libraries because he lacked the resources to pursue a higher education. And so he read voraciously throughout his life in libraries. This is where he learned. And in fact, throughout his life, not only was he a voracious reader, but he even rented time on a typewriter as an emerging writer. And we have one of his typewriters here at the library. So we invite you to come in and look at that when we're open. In recognition of the importance Waukegan Library held for him, Bradbury left his personal library and his last typewriter to us upon his death in 2012. You can see highlights of Ray Bradbury's collection on our main floor whenever the library is open. Waukegan Public Library is proud and honored to be the site of Zachary Oxman's monumental sculpture, Fantastical Traveler. We hope that this work, which so beautifully and energetically evokes Bradbury's passionate commitment to lifelong learning, inspires a new generation to come to the library in search of achieving their dreams, and generations after that. And that they understand that the library is always ready to do as our mission states, provide the path to empower and promote learning and discovery for everyone. We'd like to extend our deepest thanks to the Ray Bradbury Statue Committee. They have worked tirelessly these last 5 years, and in particular co-chairs Richard Lee and Lori Nierheim for their tireless work to make the sculpture a reality, and to the more than 200 donors without whose generous contributions the sculpture could not be here today. In addition, I would really like to thank the staff of the Waukegan Public Library, because they really did chip in a lot of work to help bring this together, to make sure that people were safe as it was being built, to make sure this party was a great party and this event is a great event. And they really deserve a lot of thanks also. I am really impressed that this community has come together to do this. It's amazing. I've been here a year and a half, and it's amazing to see what everybody has come together to honor this person and to honor this community, and I'm just in awe of the whole thing. So I'm so pleased to be a part of this. Thank you all for coming this evening, and I do hope you enjoy the rest of the program.
And who is our special guest tonight? He'd like to offer greetings to you. It's James A. Lovell, Jr., retired United States Navy captain and former astronaut. He was a naval aviator of distinction. In preparation for the Apollo lunar missions, he crewed Gemini 7 in 1965 with Frank Borman, a long-duration mission famously remembered by many of us as the rendezvous with Gemini 6 as Mission 76. Gemini 12 in 1966 he commanded with Buzz Aldrin. He was command module pilot and navigator for Apollo 8's lunar orbital mission with Frank Borman and William Andrews, a mission that proved the capabilities for the landing missions to the moon that followed. He commanded Apollo 13 through its dramatic return trajectory to Earth after a fire crippled the life support systems and prevented the lunar landing. Captain Lovell was the first astronaut to complete 4 missions in space, one of only 3 to travel to the moon twice. A small crater on the Earth side of the moon for Ray Bradbury was named by Apollo 15, but another crater on the far side of the moon is named for Jim Lovell, facing out to the solar system that Ray Bradbury so earnestly wanted to explore. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings tonight from Captain Lovell.
No, please.
Thank you, John, for that nice introduction. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and to be part of this dedication of this statue to Ray Bradbury and all that he had thought about in our space fantasies when he was doing it. I can recall years ago some of the work that I had read and never thought that I'd participate in it. But then what he fantasized in those years suddenly became reality to me in the space program. It's really something that is I'll of course always remember, and I think that Ray Bradbury was a good part of the instigation, is the motivation to actually have a space program. So we went from fantasy of Ray Bradbury's books to reality of our space programs. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite members of the Ray Bradbury Statue Committee to join me and Captain Lovell in unveiling this sculpture.
Up too high? No, you're fine.
Okay, here we are at the Waukegan Public Library at the Ray Bradbury statue unveiling event, and I'm with the mayor of Waukegan. And your name?
My name is Sam Cunningham, mayor of the city of Waukegan.
Wow, thank you so much, Mayor, for coming. What a great event today. What did you think of the event tonight?
I tell you, the excitement that was in the air of having James Lovell, of having the young man who did the sculpture, to have Mr. Yellen here, and all of these people who remember and understand what Ray Bradbury meant to not only Waukegan, Illinois, but throughout the county of Lake.
Yeah, absolutely. What does this mean for Waukegan? Obviously, tourism coming through here.
Well, again, this is just part of our rebirthing of what Waukegan was. Waukegan was that town that everyone went to within the county. We're trying to right now bring that become that destination spot for Lake County in Waukegan, and as events such as this will help us to achieve that goal for today and for the future.
I like what you said. I can't wait for next year.
Yeah, next year we were in there just huddling around, and David Motley, our PR director for Waukegan, says, Mayor, we're going to do 100th birthday party again right here with the same type of environment today. And that's the excitement that Ray Bradbury was a person, not only put us on the map, but also put us throughout this country as to what Waukegan is all about, but reading and the joy of reading. So we're excited about that. And we need to celebrate that as well.
Absolutely. Well, and we'll definitely be here for that. Thank you so much, Mayor, again, for participating in this event. Great event and great statue. Thank you so much for your time with us today.
Thank you.